Hello, people of Connecticut. I am Selena Rifkin. I am here with my co-host Jason Douglas and our estimable guest, Mr. Mark Cook of the Hand Count Roadshow. He is a cybersecurity expert, and he is going to tell us today all about voting machines and why a hand count is a really good idea. And this is something that I have been promoting on this show for some time. And so now we have somebody here who can actually give you a little bit more detail since I'm no expert. So, Mark, why don't you tell us where you've been and what you've been doing and all about yeah, just tell us about yourself, please.
Welcome, Mark.
Okay, cool. Hey, all. Okay, glad to be here. How many people do we have on here? Oh,
It's not live streaming, so we're
We're
just,
recording now.
yeah, so
oh,
it's recording. So,
We post
cool.
it later.
yep, we both.
All right, all right, cool. Well then, I'm been in IT and cybersecurity for a very long time. Started back in 1986, writing software. I think in the late 80s, I ran one of the larger bulletin boards in the Western United States. This is back before CompuServe and Prodigy. Started an IT company when I was 13 years old and have been running that for over 40 years. So I know a little bit about computers, I guess, is
Maybe
one
a little.
one way to say that.
A
Just a
little.
little bit. And I also do quite a few other things. You know, in the I guess late 90s, I was working on designing neural networks for robotics, AI robotics. Then I got into about 10, 15 years ago into automotive performance, designing, manufacturing, automotive performance parts, essentially, programming and tuning engines using and relying on artificial neural networks for engine management, fuel management, etc.
Oh,
So I can wear a few different hats, so to say, even though I usually wear this white one. Been mechanic for a long time as well. I like to do a lot of things. I like to figure things out. And
Mhm.
in the IT arena, after 40 years or so, I turned out to be the guy that got called in all the time to figure out what was actually going on when some system was broken somewhere and companies were fighting about who is actually at fault for it. The
right.
owner just wants it fixed, so they usually end up hearing from someone, and they find out about me, contact me, and
Oh,
bring me in as a specialist to actually get to the bottom, the root cause of the actual issue in this complex system. That's my specialty, and so someone knew that about me. That by the name of Dennis Kane, who is Nate Kane's father. Nate Kane is the FBI whistleblower on the Uranium One deal.
oh,
Okay.
And
wow. Okay.
shortly after the 2020 election, I got a call from Dennis and asked me if how quickly I could get out to DC to help his son Nate determine what happened in the 2020 election,
Oh,
knowing my skill set.
okay.
So that's how I got involved in elections in the beginning. I mean, before that, I really hadn't paid a whole lot of attention other than I had been a poll watcher and I had some certain questions and I saw some things that were certainly concerning to me, possible huge vulnerabilities in the systems. But I figured there's no way the United States is using electronic voting systems that are insecure because that would be absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I never questioned them.
Yeah,
I
who would have
saw
thought,
things
right?
that, yeah, I figured, well, obviously they put protections in place, and I thought, well, those protections must be pretty impressive. I'd love to look at them someday. But that's all I had thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
So come 2020 election aftermath, a week after the 2020 election, I was out in DC at the Arlington Hotel, or sorry, Westin Hotel in Arlington, Virginia, just on the edge of DC is where I kind of stationed out of. And that happened to be the same room that Sidney Powell was working out of. That was her war room during the election. And she was just evacuated the day before, I believe, due to a security threat.
Mhm.
So I showed up right after that. I didn't get to meet Sydney at that time, but my whole world went from down to like that because I was like, I can't even believe that I grew up in this little mountain town, Colorado, entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and here I am standing in the doorway and in the room of where this famous attorney was all over the TV on, and I'm literally standing in the same doorway I thought, what am I doing here? This is way out of my league.
Right.
But I wanted to know what the heck actually happened, and I knew I couldn't believe what the media was telling us. So I decided I was just going to stay and try to help all I could. And I explained
Yeah.
that who I am and what I know. And I was told that they don't have any computers there for me to help them with because Sydney took all of them when she was evacuated.
Okay. All right.
And I figured, well, how do we solve electronic election fraud if no one's got any computers? Am I the only one that's got a computer here? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's
So
ridiculous.
yeah, so I borrowed a car, and they said if I went and bought a bunch of computers, that I would be paid back by the RNC that had 200 and something $1 million. And I never considered questioning that. I borrowed the car. I went to computer store. I bought a whole bunch of computers. My credit card bill that month, I think, was $16,000 by the end of the month. It was a lot. And I brought these computers back. I set all the stations up, and I ended up living out of this hotel for about a month and a half. I had to
Wow.
order clothes and toiletries on Amazon. It was the most bizarre thing ever
We have to make
because
a
of the
movie.
security. Yeah, because of the security threats, I couldn't tell anyone where I was or what I
Yeah.
was doing. I just had to
Okay.
tell friends and family I had to leave. I had an emergency. I'm okay, but I'll have to check in a week.
Okay.
Wow.
And that was it. And when I saw what was going on, I realized the danger that our nation was actually in and how
Wow.
we had all been lied to about so many things. I'm a few weeks in, I think someone even asked me if I wanted to see the Hunter Biden laptop. And I got to forensically examine that and
Wow.
realized right then, with proof right in front of my face, that our own intelligence agencies had been lying to us this whole time as well.
Wow.
And so I didn't know who to trust at this point. I'm in this environment where I figured someone could put a bullet through my head at any moment, during that time. Even the people I'm
Sure.
working with, I figured, well, at some point, someone's probably going to, kill me.
Come after
But
you, yeah.
yeah, I didn't know what to believe. It was a crazy time for all of us. But here, most of the country is just living on social media or what was left of it at the time and the mainstream media. And I'm sitting here behind the scenes seeing the truth. And
Yeah.
so I couldn't leave because if I left, how would any of the citizens actually know what was going on?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
that's why I stayed there and I tried to help. I tried to do everything I could to help, but in nothing to hurt because I didn't want to step on any toes.
Yeah.
And after a month and a half there, I kind of figured out what was going on.
Right.
I put a
Wow.
lot of the system together, and then I have just been on this mission because I've found that the elections have been stolen from us right
They
under
have.
our noses. We
They
didn't
have.
realize it, and the control of it, even our own election officials in our counties don't have control of them
Yeah.
either. And
All levels too.
you got it, all levels.
Yeah.
So the corporations have taken them over, the government's taken them over, and we the people have lost them. And I knew that that's what happened, and I needed a way to help save my fellow citizens. So I realized I just had to give up everything, and I had to go on this mission to try to bring the information that I have, the knowledge I have, the expertise I have, the guidance I have to try to empower every citizen I can meet with the information they need in order to fight this and
Yeah.
reclaim their elections again. So there's my brief
Reclaim the
summary of
republic.
what brought me
Reclaim the
here.
republic. Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I have a theory about. Well, first of all, I have to. That must have been a heck of a shock to you when you would, as a young man, just thinking that to see the extent of the corruption ways happened. I feel like here's what I feel like. In I feel like during the 20th century, the elections were at the primary level were often rigged, so that by the time you got to the last two guys at the end, they were both acceptable to the deep state. So in other words, a guy like Gary Hart from back in the 80s, he was a guy that was going to tell the truth, was going to tell people what's going on, and they slandered the heck out of him. They got him out of there at the primary level, right? So there was no need to rig the general election because both candidates were already acceptable.
Yep.
But then Trump came along and broke that pattern. Trump came along and they tried their best to slander him out of the primaries, but he was just too unique in the way he did it. He didn't behave like a politician. Completely, when he made the statement about Rosie O'Donnell, only Rosie O'Donnell in the 2015 debate, that's when it got my attention. I was like, whoa. And he just bowled over their attempt at, completely got by their thing and got in as president, infuriated the deep state. So what did they do? They sat down in their boardrooms. They said, we got to rig the general election. So that's why I believe starting in starting with the Russian hoax and then starting with 2018 midterms a little bit, but starting with the 2020 election, which is that election was rigged to the max, and you know that. So
Everything
now
they
you
could
know
throw
that you
at
can
it.
tell me that as a fact.
Yeah, everything they could throw at it, they threw at it because they had to, because
Right,
Trump was kind of an uncontrollable candidate for
broke the
them.
mold.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've been rigging elections for decades.
Yeah,
Many, many, many decades. Longer than I've been alive, they've been rigging elections. And if
yes.
people don't understand that, they need to go to the following website. It's thelostinterview.com.
So,
THELOST interview.com. All one word. And watch that interview. I found it on the dark web. It was all deleted before. I've done everything I could to bring those interviews back. But it's about the Collier brothers, and it was about the election fraud they uncovered in the 70s and 80s. And they even talk about the history of elections even prior to the 70s. It's the same stuff. It's Groundhog Day. And their information, their investigations were completely trashed and hidden from all of us for all these years. It's the same thing. It's never stopped. It's been going on and on and on. It just reached a point where it was so obvious that the rest of America finally started opening their eyes up a bit.
right.
And now we have an opportunity to fully expose this to everyone, but we must not miss this opportunity. We must
This is
take it
our
and
last chance.
expose it and fix it. This is our time, and this is our only time.
This is our
It's
Yeah.
only
one
chance.
chance we have at this. That's it.
Yeah, one shot.
One
So
shot.
tell me about, so we've talked a lot on this show about the fraud that happens via the voter rolls, because we have people who, in the state who are looking at that, and we're all for, please, examine our voter rolls, please examine our voter rolls. We know the level of fraud that is extant on the voter rolls. So maybe you can walk us through the, why we need to hand count. What are the machines doing? Because I know there's multiple different ways that can be manipulated. So maybe you could walk us through some of that.
Absolutely. And I want to go over the framework of it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull up a presentation here, a slide deck I've got,
And if you want
and
to
I want to be able to.
share your screen, you can. If
Yep, I'm definitely going to. Hold on, I just had to get it pulled up here, and because I do want to show you now. How long do we have here? So I
as
know
much
how much.
time as you need.
As long as you need.
Yep.
Well, that could be 12 hours, but
Okay.
Well,
All right.
I do
All right.
have to
We
go get
usually
something
go
we
here.
usually
hour,
run
hour
right
and a
around
half.
an hour. Yeah, we go a
We
little
All
usually
right.
go
over. It's
hour
fine.
and a
Yeah.
half.
All
So
right, so you got to be specific with me. I'm zeros and ones
got
guy
it.
here.
I got you. I
All
got you.
right.
An
I'm
hour
I'm
or more.
basically an organic computer. That's the way I operate.
Cool.
All right,
I
let's
think I'm a
see
numbers
here.
guy too.
Yeah, let's see here. I'm gonna go ahead and we'll share that screen right there. Okay, you should have it now.
Yes. Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
Going.
So what I'll do is I'll go over the main components, and I've got 200 and something slides in this particular slide deck. I'm just gonna pick, 5 or 10 of them to go through here. If anyone wants to watch my full presentation, I encourage you to do so, and you can do that at handcountroadshow.org. And just scroll down a little bit. You'll see like a purple button right there basically almost toward the top of the page. And that purple button will take you to the latest slide deck. It actually takes you to the Ventura County, California presentation I did, but that's a really good 3 or so hour long presentation where I hit all of the main points. That's a pretty darn good one. So I would watch that if you want to see the whole thing. And you're going to notice some of these slides I'm showing you now are a little bit newer than that one, but the content is basically the same. So here we go. Our overall election ecosystem. And it's important for people to understand the landscape of the election system, the ecosystem in totality, because you can't fix a problem if you don't know what's causing the problem. And
Absolutely.
especially if you only have a narrow view of it, you're not going to be able to fix it fully if you only understand one little part of it. So I'm going to address those 3 main areas where elections are manipulated, and then I'm going to go into the individual components and explain why and how they're manipulated in those ways. And of course, we have evidence to support all of this. By now, 6 years later, we got tons of evidence.
Mhm.
So, but let me lay it out for everyone here. So elections could be manipulated before they get to the county. And I'm talking about voting. I'm not talking about like candidates lying to each other or
Right,
lying
right,
to the
right,
citizens or anything like that.
right.
I'm talking about the elections themselves, the voting. Okay. pre-county, before the ballots make it to the county, or the election office, at county, while they're there, how that can be manipulated,
Mhm.
and post-county, after they leave the county and before they get to the TV screen at the end of the night.
Mhm.
Those are your three main areas. So let's talk about the pre-county. How are elections manipulated pre-county? Well, there's two main components that provide the facility, the mechanisms for manipulation, and that is voter registration and voter validation. And I'm not saying those are bad just because they exist, but it's how they're used. So the voter registration system controls the number of ballots in circulation. And so it's generally a database, and every entry in that database is allowed a vote in the election.
Mhm.
You know,
And if someone were to,
just for the purposes of, we're one of the weird states here in this country who goes by town instead of county, but it's the same
yeah,
principle.
same thing. It was
Yeah,
a jurisdiction, right?
yeah.
Yeah, unit. So your local unit, whatever that is, county, town, etc. Sometimes they're boroughs. It
Mhm.
depends on where you are in the state or where in the country. So voter registration is a database of entries, names and addresses, and some other fields. And those each entry is usually an ID number. Each entry is allowed to have a vote in
Right.
the election if it's an active entry, so to say. It's potentially able to have a vote associated with it. And if someone were to get into that database and add, let's say, 10,000 or a million extra entries in there,
Like dead
that would,
voters, like dead
like dead
people.
voters or duplicate records or, illegal aliens, whatever they want to do, right? If they
Wow.
were to able to insert entries into that database, that would provide room for those same number of ballots to be injected into the system.
Yes.
Incredibly dangerous. Now, back in the day, the voter registration was kept on paper cards at the actual counties or towns, and they were kept in almost like a card catalog type of stack, physical paper. So if how could someone inject paper from another place? They couldn't. You had to have physical access to the building. So you had a very small attack surface back then because it could only be attacked by someone that had access to inside that building and where those records are actually physically stored. Well, when things get digitized, now you take an attack surface that's this big and you make it that big.
Mm.
And that's what's happened. And so when you have an attack surface that's that large, you open up all these channels of potential abuse, these vectors of abuse. And then if bad actors exist, which we know there's bad guys out there and we know bad guys who want to
Sure
manipulate
do.
elections, right? We've given them a perfect opportunity to be able to do that. And then when you take that control out of your towns and you move it into this, even the state system, well, now your towns don't have control of that. Your local officials have lost that control. And now that control has been displaced. And in addition to the control being displaced, the responsibility for keeping those records clean have been displaced. Now your local elected officials are no longer the ones that are responsible for cleaning it
Mm.
because now they can't even do it
Right.
effectively because they don't have control of it. It's called custodianship. They don't have custodianship, sole custodianship of these records any longer.
Now, and
They're
now we brought,
stolen.
and here's where we depart from the constitutional principle in the beginning. We're already,
Oh, yes, right in the first part of it.
right on the
Absolutely.
first part. Yeah.
Yep. And it's all by design. This is not accidental. This is deliberate subversion of our elections. And it was allowed because a lot of people didn't understand what was going on. And they made very stupid decisions without enough information.
When did, I
And
have a question. When did most of these records get digitized? When did that happen?
it depends. It
By state?
probably a majority of them probably around the Help America Vote Act days, the
Okay.
early 2000s.
Okay.
The Help America Vote Act, actually, what it should have been named is the Help Us Vote for America Act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because essentially, what HAVA did is
Mm.
steal the votes of the American people.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
So when you have the voter registration system now in this database, you've now created an abusable infrastructure
yeah.
to be able to affect the integrity of the elections. Then what they tell us is the voter validation system protects abuse. Don't worry, even though we've made this thing more abuse-able, the validation system stops that abuse. Well, that's just not the case. And so
Yes.
what is the validation system? Well, for mail-in ballots, that is the signature verification. And what we, the peasants, are told is that don't worry, because when those ballots get returned, the mail ballots get returned, there's a signature on the outside of the envelope, and that signature makes it safe. And that's the lie that we're told. And many people did not question that, and they should have, because it's a total line of CRAP.
Mhm.
And I'm going to explain why that is right now. Let's just say you have an envelope, it's got a ballot inside, and on the outside of the envelope is a signature. Great. So that envelope shows back up at the town, and they're getting ready to determine whether they're going to tabulate that ballot or not. And they look at the signature and they compare it with a reference signature, the original signature. Now, what they're doing is they're comparing it typically with a digitized signature for a reference signature, which is usually in a digital system. Now, sometimes they're on paper in smaller areas, but everything's being moved into the digital space now. And so they'll check it against this digital signature. And everyone has signed those signature pads, in the gas station, the grocery store, and the bank. And you know how bad your signature looks on those things. So the reference signatures aren't that good anyway.
Yep.
Even if they're scanned documents, they're not that great.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're looking at the signature on the envelope, in a lot of cases, they are digitizing the envelopes. And they're actually, the citizens that are checking this are looking at a digital signature of a scanned image of the envelope, not actually the envelope itself.
Wow.
So they're comparing something on their screen that they think is the envelope signature with something else on the other side of their screen, which they think is some reference signature.
Can't even be honest about envelopes. Jeez.
And it's I'm not saying it's everywhere like that, but in a lot of places it is like that. Some of them actually have the envelopes, and then they look at the screen for the reference. And in very tiny areas, they'll have the envelope, and they'll actually have the paper voter registration paperwork. But that sometimes comes in by email or website. So sometimes, even though it's on paper, the signature was not a wet signature directly from the voter themselves anyway. So they don't know any of this. It's all based on wild assumptions. And then, of course, they're also told, anyone verifying the signatures, that, people's signatures change. So you have to be able, be a little bit relaxed on how closely you check them, because signatures change and you don't want to disenfranchise any of the voters. So if it's close, it's good enough.
Right.
In addition to that, the citizens that are checking the signatures aren't even trained to do so. They're not properly trained. They're not certified forensic document analysts. In a court of law, if you had to verify a signature is valid, you would need to bring in someone that was certified, which means 2 years of schooling, testing, and certification before you could verify a signature in a court of law. Yet for our ballots, they're like, oh, yeah, come on in. And some of the times they don't even train the citizens. Sometimes they give them a few minutes of training or have them look through a PDF file. But there's no way, they're never tested, and they certainly can't do it with 100% accuracy. That I guarantee you. And so you've got people that are unqualified doing a job they should not be doing, which is affecting the integrity of our elections. So if they allow a ballot through that shouldn't have been allowed through, they end up disenfranchising other people.
Yes.
And if they don't allow a ballot through that they should allow through, they're disenfranchising that voter.
Yeah.
So what they end up doing is they just allow everyone through most of the time.
Yeah.
Very rarely do they not. Now, here's why the signature doesn't even matter, even though I've spent 5 minutes talking about it.
Right. Okay.
Let's just say you had a certified forensic document analyst come in and look at that signature, and you got the best person in the world, and they said, this is absolutely the same person that signed these two documents. Okay, so let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that it is a valid signature. Now, they open the envelope and they pull the ballot out. How does anyone know who filled the ballot out?
Yeah, of course.
There's no way to know who filled the ballot out.
Yeah, you can't match the signature with the ballot. Yeah.
No, it has no, nothing to do with signature.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? We're assuming the signature's valid.
Right.
Yep.
But you weren't there
How
because
do
you
we-
didn't see.
How do we know who filled the ballot out?
Right. You can't link the two. Yeah.
There's no way. It has nothing to do with linking. There's no way to know who filled the ballot out because we have no idea who filled the ballot out. because the
Mhm.
ballot just showed up inside this envelope,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
This is the elephant in the room that the country has not seen.
Mm.
There's no way to know who filled out the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you don't know who filled out the ballot, then what exactly are you determining? We're
Mm-hmm.
told we're determining the the eligibility of the voter. That's the whole point of the signature, is to check eligibility.
Right.
If we don't know who the voter is, how could you
Haven't
ever
validated
determine the
it.
eligibility of an unknown voter?
Right.
Mm. Right.
So it's impossible to determine the eligibility of the voter.
When you do a
And
mail-in.
therefore, if we can't determine the eligibility of the voter, how on earth could we tabulate that ballot?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what people have to understand. That's what they have to pick up and get in their head.
Mm.
Because right there, every mail in ballot is fraudulent
Right.
because we don't know who filled it out.
Right.
In
Wow.
addition to that, it's even worse. How do you know who put the signature on it, on the envelope?
Right.
We don't know that either, right? So we
Wow.
don't know who filled out the ballot. We don't know who signed the envelope, yet we're making a determination whether or not we should tabulate this ballot among all the other results.
Right.
There's your main source of fraud in modern day elections. It's mail in ballots. That is a super highway of fraud. Then you combine that with early voting, and you've created a perfect mechanism in order to not only manipulate elections, but manipulate them in a way that is
Massive.
surgical,
Yeah.
surgical manipulation of the elections. Because what they can do in order to manipulate an election, or the
Sure.
reason why someone would want to manipulate elections is you want to control the result of the election.
Mm.
And if you're going to manipulate something by stuffing in ballots, you have to know how many ballots to stuff in
Right.
and what those votes should be. Well, how do you know that when you're stuffing them in? Because you haven't been able to look at the other ballots yet. Well,
Right.
here's the other elephant in the room. There's actually two elephants in this room, by the way, and they're both very large elephants.
Huh.
The other elephant in the room is this. If I know what your party affiliation is, could I make a guess of what your ballot's going to look like when you fill it out?
Pretty good one.
Seems likely.
Pretty good. Now, what if, just by knowing your affiliation, right? What if not only just your affiliation, but what if I had a whole profile on you? What if I had all your social media information, all your
Mhm.
purchase information, the Amazon stuff? I have all your GPS data so I know who you hang out with, where you hang out, where you go to work out, where you go to eat. I have all your social media posts so I know how you feel about every possible social issue. I know what candidate you like. I know everything about you. Then how close would I be on guessing what your ballot's going to look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 99%,
You
right?
almost
Or
you're
more.
almost not even guessing anymore at this point.
I don't have to guess. I
Yeah.
just need to know if you voted. And if I know you voted, I can put an entry in a predictive election result model
Mm-hmm.
for your ballot.
Right.
And if I've got a profile on every single voter and
Mhm.
I know who has voted and who has not, whether they've put a ballot in the mail or they've shown up in person, because I get information right from the electronic poll books also. I know every time someone shows up to vote. All I have to do is take the list of people that have voted, combine that with their profile
Mhm.
of how they vote, and then I could build a very accurate predictive election result model. And if I know what I want the results to be, and I know what the results are based on my model, then I just subtract and I know exactly what ballots I need to stuff in and where to stuff them in because I've got all the data on all the precincts and all the voter rolls. It's all centralized now. So I got it all. And now I can have those ballots filled out that, by the way, I harvested because I injected all these bogus entries into the voter rolls already with the dead people and duplicate entries and duplicate voter IDs and all that. So I got all these ballots floating around everywhere while I harvest them. And now I've got an inventory of ballots that I can then fill out according to my calculations. And then I can put them back in the mail and they'll show right back up. And then because the signature verification is a total joke, those ballots will all get tabulated. And that's how I can manipulate the entire election before the ballots arrive to be counted.
Wow.
And it can be done from anywhere in the world. So there's your pre-county manipulation. That's the sophisticated system that I still think 95% of America isn't aware of.
Yeah, I think you're
But you
right.
guys are now, and these listeners and watchers are now.
That includes a
So
lot of politicians, by the way, that are otherwise decent people that just don't wouldn't believe or aren't aware of this.
I'm telling you, it's
Terrible.
listen, guys, I have been right, and I'm not tooting my own horn here. It is just a fact. And feel free, look back at all my posts, look back at everything I've done, all my work for 6 years. I've been dead on right 100% of the time so far. I have not been
Yeah.
wrong
No, yeah, you are
one
right.
time, even from my initial guesses based on the data that I looked at and the how I analyzed the system, diagrammed the system out. I looked at it and said, well, if they were going to manipulate it, here are all the ways they would do it. And here's what you would see.
Mhm.
I've been completely proven right for 6 years. Every time we find more information, it solidifies exactly the way I say this is happening. And I cannot even believe it. It's like it feels like a nightmare to me.
Wow.
It's the only
It
time I
is
wish
a
I was
nightmare.
wrong, actually.
Yeah.
I wish I'd been wrong this whole time about it.
Yeah, I
But
hear you. It's a nightmare, really, for freedom.
it is. So people, if the citizens don't figure this out, if you're an honest, good American patriot, I don't, if you're an official, that's great. God bless you. If you are doing your civic duty to serve the fellow citizens here. But regardless, if we ignore this, we're going to lose our republic.
Yeah, we will.
And I don't care how you feel about election fraud and all that crap. It's the whole thing's been everyone associated has been demonized, and it's been made a taboo topic. I couldn't care less about the taboo topic. The whole reason it's made taboo is because the people that have been benefiting from this manipulation that have built the system after all these years wanted to make it taboo, needed to make it taboo, so people didn't figure it out. They didn't want anyone discussing this. They don't want you listening to me because they don't want anyone to know what they're doing. So they're really not happy with me going out and telling people about how it's happening. And I'm sure at some point they're probably going to finally stop me if God allows it. But I'm gonna be loud, and I'm gonna travel everywhere until that day happens. I'm gonna do everything I can to plant all these seeds of knowledge. So maybe, hopefully, in my lifetime, the American citizens will take back their nation. And if it doesn't happen in my lifetime, I hope that the seeds I'm planting will allow our future generations to do that as well. Or maybe you guys, because I may be gone tomorrow. I have no idea. But that's okay. None of us get out of this alive, by the way. So you gotta, reach deep
Right.
inside. If you guys are thinking, well, I don't know if I want to get involved because it's
Oh, we're
dangerous and it's
in.
scary. Um, you
We're in.
know,
We've been in.
throw that out. Literally, none of us get out of this
You know
alive.
what? There's strength in numbers too. If people come out in numbers and fight
Absolutely.
this thing, that's what we need to do. People shouldn't feel like they're alone.
No. And if we do this all together, we'll crush them.
We'll crush
We
them.
will
There's
crush
way
the
more of
bad
us.
guys doing this to us. Literally, America will save itself if enough citizens stand up. But
That's
what
right.
they try to do, the bad guys use fear to cause people to not act.
That's correct.
That's how
That's
they're
correct.
control. It's fear-based control.
That-
And people have to realize that. And as soon as we ignore the fear, we are so much more powerful. And that's how we're going to crush them as soon as we ignore that fear. So do not be fearful.
that's
They can't
correct.
take us all out.
They cannot take us all out at once. That's correct.
You got it. So there's your pre-county manipulation. Now at the county, of course, they can still manipulate it. If you've got bad actors inside your county, all bets are off because they can do whatever they want within the
Mhm.
county. They know how to manipulate the electronic voting systems in a way subtly that the citizens would never see, and they can inject all the extra votes they want. They can also, the easiest way to do it, by the way, in the county is just swap ballots. Once all the ballots get through your your signature verification, joke phase,
Mhm.
and those ballots are just sitting there before they've gone through the tabulator. All they have to do is swap the ballots out.
Mm.
It's not difficult for them to do
Right.
that.
And
Right.
there's video of floating around on the internet of people having done this or running
Yep.
ballots through the machine multiple times.
There's another
There's
way they
evidence
can
for
do it.
that.
Run it, but here's the thing: if you run them through the multiple times, you end up with more votes than voters. And so they also have to
Well,
fix the
that
other
is
side of,
also a thing. We've also seen that is a thing.
and
Somebody else has
and
been
they
tabulating that particular piece as well. So,
Yeah, and they try not to do that because the peasants do figure it out. So what they'll do is that since they have control of both of the systems, if they're going to stuff a bunch of ballots in or rescan ballots over and over again, which essentially is like adding extra ballots in digitally, then if they are able to do the same in the other systems, they can basically turn voter records as they can mark them as having voted. and submitted a ballot even though they didn't submit a ballot. That's how they clean it up so the numbers all match later. So just because your numbers match doesn't mean there wasn't manipulation. There
Right.
are so many ways these people can manipulate it that the citizens would never know about or be able to find. That's
Right.
the problem. And if the vendors are doing it, none of our election officials would ever know about it either. And that's a big problem too. So obviously that can happen there. And then if the vendors are in and on it in the software, the tabulation software, the easiest way for them to do it, and we do have evidence of them doing this all over the country, not everywhere, but we've got lots of counties, lots of states. Here's what they're doing. Inside the voting system itself, it is flipping the votes as the ballots are scanned in. It's
Hmm.
flipping the votes on the ballots and changing some votes. Some votes it doesn't touch, some votes it does. And
Mhm.
there's an algorithm that it uses to determine which votes it flips and which votes it doesn't flip in order to make it look organic to the, we'll say, the naked eye.
Wow.
But if you know how to examine the data, you can see the artifacts in it. What ends up happening is when they have an algorithm controlling when votes are flipped and when they're not flipped, because there's an algorithm that does it, it leaves a pattern. And luckily, we have a brilliant mathematician that has figured out the pattern. And it's actually pretty simple. He just happened to have a gift and he saw it. And he's a good friend of mine. And I have since, I mean, he's really high IQ. He's got to be like 160, 180 plus IQ. Crazy high. I'm not that smart. So I've had to spend some time with him to figure out what he was talking about. And then what I try to do is, explain it in ways that people can understand. Not everyone has the patience I do in trying to understand these really complex things. And,
Yeah.
you have to explain it in ways that people will understand. So I try to always create analogies to explain these concepts. But essentially what they're doing is it's an algorithm that looks at different votes on the ballot, and based on different combination of votes, it decides to flip votes
Certain
the other
votes.
direction,
Yeah.
right? And it makes it look random, but it's actually not. And you can see the pattern if you take a step back.
Almost
We
like
know
kind of
how to
like
see the
counting.
pattern.
It's almost like counting cards in poker, just to create that edge, right? It's like this,
You got it.
just tip it, right?
Yeah. And so they're flipping them. So what you have happen is you have synthetic results coming out of these systems. And the data that we're using
Wow.
to analyze actually comes directly from the voting system. It comes from the county or the town. It's the election officials, and they don't know what they're looking at. They just export this thing called a cast vote record, and we analyze the record. You can see it right in there. So if your election officials do not give you access to the cast vote record, then that is a big sign things are being manipulated. Now, they may want to give you access, but maybe the law prohibits them from giving you access. That could be too. So don't necessarily come down on your election officials. But
Right.
what I would like you to do is explain this concept to your election officials, or by all means, I'm happy to do so. If you hook up a meeting with me, I mean, I'm happy to talk to them and go over this with them, because most all of our election officials have no clue this is happening. They're kept
Yeah.
in the dark on all of this, and they're lied to constantly. And they need to know, as American citizens, they have to know. I feel so bad to see them lied to in
Right.
this. And some of them are starting to open their eyes up. But I can help them understand how to look at it. So if they're not giving the citizens access to the cast vote records, that's a sign. That's a tell. And here's the other tell. If they won't let the citizens hand tabulate the ballots themselves, if
Mm.
they won't let you hand tabulate your own ballots,
Hmm.
the only reason why would be if they know that if you hand tabulate them, that the results of the hand tabulation will not match the machine results.
Right.
And
Oh
that's
wow.
how you'll know if they're manipulating it inside the machine. And
Oh
when they're
wow.
manipulating it by vote flipping with these algorithmic vote flipping they're doing in a lot of cases, it will never match. The cast vote record will never match the ballots themselves. And
Right.
that's how we get them. And so if they're blocking you access to either or both, that's a really good indication that they're messing with it at that level.
Wow.
And then, of course, we have the election night reporting, which is that last part. And what happens is your election officials pull the results from the machines, and somehow they've got to send it somewhere, and eventually it shows up on the TV screen later at night, right? How does
Oh.
that happen? Well, there's a bunch of different agencies and organizations that are involved in that process. And you have to look to see exactly where do your election officials send that, and what path does that data take to get through to the TV screen. And all these entities that touch those totals in between could easily massage those results all they want. Because if you, the citizens, are not going and getting those results yourself and adding them up, and you're just blindly trusting some other entity to do it for you, that's the easiest way to manipulate it as well. And some people would say, well, that's ridiculous. What do you mean they're going to change the totals? They'd get caught too easily. I'll tell you what, I have asked all over the nation as I've traveled. I have only found, I think it's 3 states now where the citizens went out and went to their individual counties or towns, and they got the results themselves from each of those, and then they added them up themselves to see if they match what the state told them was the total.
Right.
And in those 3 states that I found that citizens did that, they have not matched the totals. It was really easy for them to do it. It just took a couple hours of work is all, and they couldn't match any of it up. Everything, all the numbers were off.
Probably way
How
off,
on,
probably too.
yeah, how on earth have we missed that one? That's the easiest one to catch them on. It literally requires just a little bit of effort, like go into a couple websites. That's it. Go to as many websites as you have jurisdictions that have totals and grab them. So I tell you, you guys need to be doing that. Every single person in election integrity needs to be grabbing your county or equivalent results and adding them up yourselves to see if they match the state totals. And if they don't, massive alarm bells should go off, and you should not be certifying any election. So those are the 3 main areas. Was that enough? Did I vomit enough information at you?
That's huge. That's absolutely
That was
huge.
fantastic. That was
Hey, Mark, have you ever thought, Mark, you ever thought of the irony of a guy like yourself who's so, is such an expert at computers, now coming out and saying, "Hey, let's not use the computers when we do elections."
Oh, dude. Hey,
Isn't that
when I
funny?
first got into this in November of 2020, and I saw what a disaster these electronic voting systems were, my first thought was, well, I could create a better voting system than this. That's the solution. We just need to create a secure voting system. So I took everything they did wrong, and I created a new system that was very, very secure. No system's 100% secure, but literally I could sneeze and make a better voting system, that's more secure than these vendors.
Yeah,
I literally could sneeze a better voting system. So I put this whole thing together, and then I got ready to explain it to some people, and I started explaining it, and I realized I'm explaining these concepts to someone, and they're sitting there staring at me blankly. And I knew right away they're just having to blindly believe me. And at that point, the light bulb turned on. I said, oh my gosh, this is exactly what got us in this problem in the first place, right? People just had to blindly believe. And I realized right then, I took my whole design, and I spent hundreds of hours designing this system while I was in that hotel. That's what I did in my spare time, was design a better system. I took all that and I threw it in the trash. I just deleted it because I realized you don't need complexity. You need simplicity.
Right.
Every single citizen, because every citizen must be able to vote. Every citizen must also be able to understand every part of their election system and be able to verify 100% of it on their own without requiring them to have any specialized knowledge.
Right.
Therefore, the only solution is paper and count the dots. And we don't need technology to count the dots and to keep track of who's registered to vote. It requires no technology to do that, in fact. So that's what I can't, absolutely, totally ironic. But that's, as a computer guy who solves all kinds of problems with computers, and I love computers, and I master computers, there is no way we can use computers for our elections.
Right, that's right.
Thank you for saying that, because we've had a couple of people come in and, oh no, we should just digitize X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, no, stop.
Nope, can't do it.
I mean, even from the level back like in high school when I first learned basic language back in the 80s, like even that I've thought about right away. Like you can just put in a little line, change for every 9 votes, change 1. I mean, it's very simple to rig it really with computers.
It is. And, some of these voting systems have Dominion has 2.1 million lines of code, and it takes 1 line to change the results of the election. I mean, come on. We can't, there's no way we can afford to do that. And we don't need to. We're just counting dots.
Yeah. Wow.
It needs no technology to count dots. Now, what we should do, instead of using technology to obfuscate the system and make it more opaque, we could take the foundation of our elections should be based on no technology. And
Hmm.
then what we should do is add layers of technology to increase the transparency of the elections. I'm all for that. But the foundation must be able to stand on its own with zero trust required. It should all be earned trust and
Hmm.
totally transparent. So someone without any knowledge of technology or use of technology can still verify the election. If you've got that as a basis, a foundation, then what we do is we add scanned ballot images with simple, cheap scanners right on the tabulation table that we hand tabulate those ballots right after they go through the scanner. And then we take the tally sheets that we've hand tabulated and the same ballots that went through the first time, and we send them through a second time. So every batch gets 2 scans, and the whole thing is done under a camera right above. So you have video footage of the entire thing. You have 2 sets of scanned ballot images and tally sheets for each batch, and then you take all the ballot images and the tally sheets and the video footage, and we put it out on the website for every single citizen to verify. Can you imagine how easy it is to create 100% fully transparent, verifiable elections?
Yeah,
It's literally, we could do it tomorrow if we wanted to.
that's true.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what is your plan around Connecticut? Like, have you? I know you're meeting with some town officials on Saturday. I plan on, if I can be, to be there. And there's others. Like, what help could you use actually from us in spreading the word around the different election officials in Connecticut, specifically while you're here?
If you can get any of them to just take a deep breath and have a conversation with me. Have an
Hmm.
open mind and just let me explain some things to them that they don't know about. I'm not expecting anyone. I never have a conversation expecting someone's going to change their behavior. That's not, I'm here to share information. They
Hmm.
take the information and hopefully, it's extra data points and hopefully it'll be useful to them at some point. It could be useful right away if they act on it.
Yeah.
If they don't, they want to, sit on it for several years, even if we have a nation by then, or if they want to wait 10 or 20 years, and maybe when they're sitting there in the bread line, they might think back, well, I should have taken that guy up on implementing some of this stuff. Maybe, but I just want to share the information so people at least know what to look for. And then if someone's more curious about it, I'm happy to provide evidence and more backup for all of this stuff. I have no problem doing that. But again, it's like, it's vomiting a whole bunch of information all at once. I don't want to overload anyone. So I like
Right.
to lay out the framework so they understand what it looks like. Then we can always color in, it's like a coloring book, right? You got
Right.
to look at the outline and then we can color it in later. That's the easy part, is the crayons are the simple part.
Well, we do know
Yeah.
some, we do know several registrars of voters.
Mhm.
I know the one in my town. And we have a number of people in our grassroots movements who are registrars, so we can certainly spread this around. And the fact that this is being recorded is just makes it awfully convenient.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, I would love that. And it's again, it's not a Democrat or Republican thing either, just so everyone knows. Like I'm not this crazy MAGA extremist or whatever people call. I mean, I'm really not even MAGA. I mean, I do want to make America great again, absolutely, but
Yeah,
I'm
who
not
wouldn't, right?
what people
It's
we
think
do
not
live
going to
here,
MAGA
after
happen.
is,
all.
It's
right?
not going to be great if we have no voice.
We do
Well,
live here. It is our
right.
home. Don't we want to make
We
our
need
home great?
I want to make elections fair again. So I'm
Yes.
the
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
the MIFA movement or
There you
MEFA
There
go.
you go.
There you
Perfect.
go.
right?
Eva.
NEPA
And
movement.
so I used to be a Democrat, just so everyone knows. I was a Democrat longer than I've been a Republican. And I thought that, that I no longer aligned with the party. What ended up happening, I didn't really realize, is the Democrat Party got totally infiltrated. And those
Yeah.
that infiltrated the party took it over and they shifted it so far left. And I stayed in the same place. So now the party was so far left of me, I ended up right of the party because the
Yeah.
party shifted. And
Right.
so and then of course the Republican Party, shifted a little left as well. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I fit in the Republican Party now.
Yeah.
And but really, it has nothing to do with party. It has to do with
No, it doesn't.
our elections being verifiable by we the people, period. And I don't care what party affiliation anyone is. And
Mhm.
I'm okay with having different viewpoints on things. That's what being an American is. We're allowed to have different viewpoints. I'm okay with having different viewpoints, but we have elections to measure our viewpoints so we
Right.
can determine with our constitutional Republican form of government
Right.
we can use that with representative republic,
Which
which
we talked
means
about the other
the
day. We
electoral
talked.
college. right? So we don't have
Yeah.
mob rule anywhere.
Right.
That system that our founders put together was brilliant. And
Yeah.
our
It was.
founders were brilliant. And if
It
we
were.
ignore that, we will lose our nation. The whole reason why America is so incredible is because our founders designed such a brilliant system.
And they did it
And
together. They
oh,
negotiated with
yes.
each other. They bounced off each other. They had these
Mhm.
conversations. They didn't just come up with some idea, one of them in their head, and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. That's
They looked at
totalitarianism.
Yeah, they looked at every failure of every other nation in time and
Hmm.
they designed a better system. They engineered a method, a
Yep.
way that you could have a nation of self-governance. And that had never been done successfully before.
Never.
And
That's
and
right.
that's why we were told, right? It's a republic if you can keep it. Well, we are in the you can if you can keep it stage
We
right
are.
now. And if we don't take action to reclaim our elections, we will lose our republic without any question. And that's why I'm basically losing it all in life, which sucks. I mean, I really don't want to. I kind of did have a plan to have, a family, and I kind of wanted to have that. But I guess God had a little bit different plan for me, and I'm just going to do what God's wanting me to do here is for as long as I can afford to do it. And just so everyone knows, if I am not paid by any organization, I'm not doing the bidding of anyone else. I'm not, I don't, not, I'm not in the Trump admin or,
Uh,
the Harris admin or whatever admin, no admins. I work with everyone that wants fair elections, whether you're Democrat, whether you're Republican, Libertarian. I work with all parties, everyone to get fair elections. And I'm doing this all out of my savings account. That's it. And whatever help citizens give me along the way to keep my tank filled up and afford some RV parks and the food and water and stuff. And as long as if the citizens keep me going, I will keep charging along for as long as I can. And that I'm kind of citizen surfing, American citizen surfing right now as I travel around my truck and trailer, bringing this information. I prefer in-person visits, but sometimes we got to do, we do something like this as Zoom, which is fine. But like we got to meet in person, a
yeah, we
couple
did.
days ago.
And
This
you're
is
going
why
to
I
be,
come directly to the counties or towns, the areas themselves, because I want to sit there and meet my fellow citizens. And you get to know a lot about a person when you get to meet them eye to eye and sit
That's
down
true.
with them
That's
as well.
true. We only got to meet briefly, but we did talk on the phone. We had an interesting discussion, Mark, about the word. You remember about the word democracy?
Yeah,
Remember that and how that word gets misused by the left?
on
We're really
purpose.
not in a democracy.
Well, no, it's not just by the left though.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
misused by those on the right also because the people that are trying to
everybody. Yeah.
destroy our constitutional republic, they use words they change definitions and they use linguistics as
Hmm.
weapons. And so
Right.
it's our democracy, right? That phrase, our democracy, is a linguistic weapon that they use to try to convince people that we have a democracy. And they do it in a very sly way by saying things like a threat to our democracy.
Right.
And they get people to defend something that doesn't even exist. And by defending something, you create it. You
Right.
manifest it
yes,
by defending
yes.
it. And
Right.
so these people are absolutely psychologically brilliant for
Yeah.
what they've done. They're super evil, but they're very smart. And so I
Yeah.
respect their intelligence and I despise their evilness.
Yeah. That's correct. That's correct. I wish more people in the media, really, and around the cities who understood that. We have too many people standing up, like on Fox News, for instance, saying, "Oh, the Democrats just don't understand. They just don't know how to win." Like as if they're still playing that game. They're not. They're here to destroy the country.
Yeah.
And they're
Well,
doing
not
and they're
not the
doing a
Demo
brilliant job of trying to do it too.
the cabal is. I'm not going to say all
Oh, no,
Democrats
No,
are
not
trying
all
to destroy the
Democrats. We're talking
country.
about most Democrats
Yeah.
are the ones just buying into it. It's
They've
the
been
people.
lied to.
It's the very people, evil
like,
people at the top that are causing it all.
They've been deceived for so long. I was one of them.
Deceived.
I got deceived too as a Democrat. And I finally realized it. And that's why I left the party. And a
Mhm.
lot of people have left the party. Like, look at Brandon Strzok. He started the walkaway movement. He started that incredible movement
That is incredible.
because he also walked away from the Democrat Party. He burst into tears when Hillary lost because he didn't quite see all of it yet. Then he figured out what was going on. And that's when he said, all right, I'm out. And he he became a Republican after that.
Mm-hmm.
And even Brandon, he didn't understand the totality of what's going on here. He just realized, the same thing I did, is that
Yeah.
something happened to this party. Something's wrong with it. And the movement he started, I mean, Brandon's absolutely an amazing person. Absolutely. He's brilliant. He's got a gift. He's entertaining. He's incredibly articulate. If anyone has not followed him or the Walkaway movement, you definitely need to follow. I think it's
We actually,
walkaway.org.
yeah, we actually have we've been keeping a close eye on that over the
Good.
course of this. But yeah, we were looking for points of contact in the organization that we could work together with here in Connecticut too.
Oh, well,
Because
I can hook you up.
yeah,
I've
we'll
had the
talk
pleasure of
about
getting
that
to know
then.
Brandon. So yeah.
Wonderful.
That I would love to get to know him or anyone else that can help, because we want to spread the word. The Walkaway movement is a slow process, but it works.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, you'll never be happier than once you release yourself from the deception and when you actually get to see clearly, everything makes more sense. And
Mm-hmm.
it turns out, a lot of people that have believed all these lies, I mean, just mass deception for
Yep.
years, they think the world is much more evil than it is. They think that all their the rest of these fellow citizens, that those on the right are these crazy Nazis that are
Yeah.
trying to
They really
destroy the
believe it.
world. and
They
and
do.
it's so sad for me to think that all these people think that of their fellow citizens, and because they don't understand and they've believed the lies. And once they realize they were lied to, and then they realize that, well, no, there actually are a lot of all these people that I thought were super evil are not evil, and it
Mm-hmm.
was
No.
all a lie, and they are good people, and they want their country back.
Right.
um I think if I were them, I would feel a lot more, I'd feel better about the world knowing the truth, which is that I don't live in a country full of a bunch of Nazis,
Right.
and I
That's
actually
correct.
have just been lied to, and I live in a country of wonderful, amazing, uh, patriotic citizens who just
Right.
want to have liberty again.
Mm-hmm. I always said that if I like I get, like, even though I obviously disagree with their side and it's totally messed up. There's a lot of the mental health crisis is a part of this too. It's another discussion. But
Mhm.
I always felt like if I myself thought that we had a guy like Hitler in the White House, right? I too would be marching in the streets yelling "No more king." I too would be,
Of course.
protesting and dedicating my life to stop it too. So sometimes I feel bad for these people that are they're just not paying enough attention. They're trusting what other people say, which a lot of people do trust what other people say blindly,
Yeah.
and it's sad. I feel sorry for a lot of them actually.
They've been scared out of their minds.
Yeah, they're
And
miserable
when
too.
you're scared, you don't think logically.
No,
And so I call it mass deception psychosis.
yeah, it's psychological warfare. They know they can't take us down in a traditional way with green uniforms and an army on the beach. They're doing it this way. They're doing it internally.
Yeah. And
So we
once you
got to
see it
stop it.
all, it makes sense. It's fifth generation warfare. And if anyone, doesn't understand what that is, you need to go buy this book called The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare, written by General Flynn and Boone Cutler. And Boone was a good friend of mine. It sucks that we lost Boone just a few days after Charlie Kirk.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
heart
terrible.
attack. Right? Yeah.
Well, definitely give us all the information again where people can log on to see the full presentation, and we want to spread the word amongst the grassroots as well, not just election people, because
We will
we can
put
put
stuff in the
pressure.
show notes. And you're doing a presentation in Hebron on
Yeah.
Saturday, right?
Yes, yes. So if you go to my website, it's handcountroadshow.org, all one word. That big red button will take you right to the I call it the progressive election platform. And I did that because they stole the word, so I'm stealing it back.
There you
So it's the
go.
progressive election platform, big red button. That'll take you and show you exactly what we need to do to fix our nation. It's real simple. Bullet point after bullet point. It's like one page, very simple. At the top of that is a button that'll take you to the proposed executive order. It's a 17-page executive order that I co-authored with a small group of people for our current administration as a guide on what steps they can take to address this critical national state of emergency that we have here, and put elections back into the hands of the citizens right away. So if you want to read that proposed order that I did hear was being floated around the White House, you can read it right there. And then also on that main page, right below the big red button, is a purple button that'll take you to one of my latest presentations in Ventura County, California. So you can click on that and you can watch that presentation. And if you click on the trailer right below that, you can download the brief that I wrote for Jim Jordan the day before the weaponization hearings. And you might like to read that brief. I wrote it was May 13th of 2023, I believe, and I did have that handed right to him and other members of Congress. And you can read what I put together, years ago. You can see I kind of figured this stuff out a while ago. And then if you scroll down from there, you'll see all the events that I have done. And I'm a one-man show. And just scroll down and you go all the way back to the beginning of when I left Colorado on May 31st of 2020. What was it? Three, I think. I think it's 23. Oh, and that Jim Jordan thing was 24. But 23 is when I hit the road in my truck and trailer, and I have been to I think almost 40 states so far. Oh,
Wow.
almost 4 years. In a week it'll be 4 years,
Okay.
and it's been a wild ride, and I'm gonna keep on going. So if you can come to Saturday's event, you'll see it when you scroll down. You'll see Saturday's event. Click on that. There's directions on who to contact to request to come. You just have to put a request in. That's all easy. And please come to that if you can. And if you can't make it, watch my presentation. I'll try to record it on Saturday as well. I think we'll be able to do that. I do have recordings of other presentations. And if you know anyone, when you scroll down the website, you'll see the big map of the US and you'll see all the states I'm going to and when. If you
Great.
know anyone in any of those states, please have them sign up for a visit. I
Okay.
I need that. One, I'm doing this. I gave up my life here to help educate as many citizens as I can. If I have nowhere to stop when I get to a state, I've got nothing to do and I've just
Right.
given everything up for nothing. And
Right.
I'd rather not do that for nothing. The other thing that's really important for me, sadly, and I'm really not good at asking for help, but when I go to these other areas, usually the citizens kind of help fill my tank to get me to the next
Uh-huh.
county or the next state. And
Right.
so I'm kind of riding on that as well. So I have a little bit of savings left. If I make it through all this, I'd like to, maybe park my trailer somewhere and take a breath at some
Yeah.
point as
Yeah.
well. So anyway, that's if anyone wants to help me do that, by all means, there's a little donate button there.
If you
Feel
need a place,
free.
if you need a place
I
to chill out
appreciate
for,
it.
if you need a place to chill out for a night while you're in Connecticut, let me know. I can help you out.
I appreciate that.
All right.
And yeah, that's it. I don't ask for help, and I certainly never charge. Charge. A lot of people ask me, "What do you charge to come visit?" I charge $0 to come visit. I don't want money to ever be something that would stop me from coming to visit and trying to help my fellow citizens. So yeah, there's no price on anything. I please,
Bless you
if
for
you invite me, and I have enough diesel in my tank, I will drive to your county on my way through your state.
that is awesome. That is awesome. You're a real patriot, man. I really appreciate having you here. We got to stay in touch, and we got to talk about Walkaway too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to.
Great. Selena, you got anything else?
No, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah,
And we
absolutely
will
fabulous.
be
Mark, thank you. Mark
with
Cook,
a
thank
lot
you
of
so much for
people.
coming.
We'll do what we can to get you pointed in the right direction for everything that you need.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you guys so much for the opportunity. Thank you for everyone that was watching this. And feel free, reach out, contact me. Also, follow me on X, Patriot Mark Cook, all one word on X. Please do that. I'm not on Facebook. I probably should get back on there at some point, but follow me on X at least because I am dropping a lot of stuff on there that's ready for the public. And
Yeah,
I'm taking the rails off at this point, and I'm just going to start, no more filter. I'm just going to throw it out there because our nation's at stake. And God bless all of you, and God bless this wonderful nation. We are going to save this together.
let's do it. God bless America. God bless America. Thank you so much for coming, Mark Cook. Keep up the good work. We'll be in touch. And once
Thank
again,
you.
for common sense news and entertainment, thanks for coming. We just got the logo the other day. We're all excited. We're doing a news network here, so we're just gonna it's gonna be awesome. So
everything's
stay in touch with us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
all right.